Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Brothers and sisters, respected scholars, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an absolute pleasure again to have you all with us on this Friday evening, or morning in the case of Sayyid Ali. So today, inshallah, we're going to tackle a subject which often brings up loads of questions. The story of Khidr and Musa encapsulates so many different aspects that I'm sure Sayyid Ali will allude to in his talk. And today we're going to have the talk given live, okay? So we'll have more time given to it, and hopefully we can expand on it and have some questions afterwards, inshallah, so that we can tackle everything as appropriately as possible, inshallah. So without further ado, Sayyidina, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's a pleasure to be here again today. Thank you for the invite. Inshallah, today we'll be looking at a very interesting story. We start, as I always start, with the verse in Surah 12, Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Verse 111, so 111, which says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Surely in their stories are lessons for people of understanding. So we find that with each story there are lessons that we can learn, inshallah, and we can take lessons from, and that's the point of the stories, as we mentioned right at the beginning of this whole series. Now, this story of Al-Khidr with Musa alayhim as-salam is one of the most unique and one of the most mystical stories in the whole Quran. It is found in Surah Al-Kahf, Surah number 18, verses 60 to 82 in the Holy Quran. And Surah Al-Kahf in itself is interesting because you find that there are three themes or three stories that are mentioned within Surah Al-Kahf. First of all, it starts with the story of the sleepers in the cave, and those who were sleeping in the cave, or the seven sleepers, as they are referred to even in the Bible as the seven sleepers. Now, this is interesting because the state of the seven sleepers in Surah Al-Kahf is the fact that they are between life and between death. So this concept of in between, because they are in a state of sleeping, yet they're dead, but they're not dead. And that's interesting within itself. It's a mystical kind of concept. Now you go to the story of Al-Khidr and Musa alayhim as-salam, and you find another concept of this mystical atmosphere where you find there are two prophets or two personalities, one who is known as the perfection, or the one who brings the exterior knowledge, ilm tashri'i, which is the exterior law-abiding kind of knowledge, which is through Musa alayhi salam. And then you find the other personality, which is Al-Khidr alayhi salam, who brings that inner, deeper understanding, or that inner knowledge. And it's the meeting between these two seas of knowledge that we'll be looking at today, inshallah. And then you find at the end of the surah, of Surah Al-Kahf, is talking about Dhul Qarnayn, who was both the leader and the one who took charge of both the east and the west. So this idea of duality in oneness, all comes about in the surah. So it's very interesting in itself. Now, the story of Al-Khidr, it's important to understand who Al-Khidr is. According to many accounts, Al-Khidr himself is a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, some people, obviously, they look at this and they say, okay, Al-Khidr is just a servant of Allah. He's one of the servants that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen, just in the same way that Luqman has a whole surah named after him in the Quran, but Luqman isn't a prophet in himself. He's just a very pious man. But according to the majority of accounts, no. Al-Khidr is himself a prophet of God, and there are many evidences for this as well within the Quran. Now, the Quran describes Al-Khidr as one of our servants, abdan min ibadina, ataynahu rahmatan minna, our servant, a servant from among our servants. آتيناه رحمة من عندنا. We gave him mercy from us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. This is how Allah describes it. And we have taught him from us, from ladunna, from a direct knowledge from us. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him. So this is, he has ilm ladunni, as some people would say. Ilm ladunni is that inner knowledge, direct knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not acquired from outside or from learning. So this is the feature of Al-Khidr alayhi salam. Now, Al-Khidr, the word Khidr comes from the root letters Akhdar, from the same root letters as Akhdar, which means green. It is said in the narrations that he's named green because every place that he used to touch or every place that he used to pray in would turn green, in the sense that it would bring that which is barren, a barren land, to life. And he himself has been given a long life, in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen him for a long life, and he is still alive today. In fact, he's one of the prophets that is known to have met many other prophets of Allah in the narrations, even our own Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is said that he even was there to give his condolences at the passing of our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a narration narrated by one of the Sunni commentators, actually, who says that Al-Khidr was present and gave his condolences at the Prophet's grave, and no one recognized him apart from one companion, and that was no other than Imam Ali alayhi salam, which was very interesting for him to narrate such a thing as well. So Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Imam after him also met Al-Khidr. In fact, the Dua Kumail, the famous Dua Kumail that we read every Thursday night, is narrated from Imam Ali alayhi salam, from Al-Khidr alayhi salam himself. So Imam Ali says, this is the Dua of Al-Khidr. So the Dua Kumail, when you read it, recognize and understand this is the Dua, this is the words of Al-Khidr narrated through Imam Ali alayhi salam, taught to Kumail ibn Ziyad, and is now known to all of us that we read every Thursday night. So it's a beautiful spiritual Dua. So you can see the connection of Al-Khidr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this Dua. Now, we know that there are two prophets that are alive that are in heaven, and two prophets that are alive that are on earth, according to some narrations. The two prophets that are alive that are in heaven, taken to heaven, are Prophets Isa, famously known, alayhi salam, as well as Prophet Idris, according to some narration. The two prophets that are on earth that are still alive are Al-Khidr, alayhi salam, which is believed by many, both in the Shia and the Sunni school of thought, and actually according to the Sufi sect of the Sunni school of thought, it's a consensus, ijma' between all of them that he is definitely alive without any doubt. And then you have Ilyas alayhi salam, another prophet that is also believed to be alive and on earth. So both Al-Khidr and Ilyas are seen to be true prophets that are alive, that are on earth to this day, and they will meet with Imam Mahdi at the end of time, along with the other two prophets that are in heaven, who will be sent down at the end of time alongside Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Now these are interesting points, because the Sunnis believe, or the other school of thoughts believe, that some of these prophets are still alive and some are alive on this earth. Then why doubt the longevity of the life of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif? So it's interesting in that concept, the idea that the long life is believed from these prophets and from the Imam himself. In fact, Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, when he returns, he will be the leader of the whole ummah. And the famous narrations say how Isa alayhi salam himself will be praying behind, and Isa is one of the ulul azm of the prophets, himself will be praying behind Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, which will be the leader of the end of times and the one who's from the progeny of no other than the best of prophets, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, let's dive into the story itself. So the story starts by Musa alayhi salam. Like I mentioned, Surah Kahf verse 60 starts. to 82, Musa alayhi salam is seeking knowledge. So when we say he's seeking knowledge, it means that there are narrations that are mentioned, and I need to just pinpoint on this one because some people have understood from one or two narrations that have been mentioned that it says someone once asked Musa alayhi salam, he said, who's the most, are you the most knowledgeable? And or something in this line, and he said, yes, of course I am the most knowledgeable. Is there anyone more knowledgeable than me? That was the reply. Now some people quote that, look, this is because he started having, Musa alayhi salam, they say, started having some arrogance in his heart, and because of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show him that no, he's not just the most knowledgeable. There are others who know knowledge that he doesn't know, or know some parts of knowledge that he is unaware of. Now, obviously, we reject such things about our holy prophets. Our holy prophets were the most humble of people throughout their lives. Musa alayhi salam, if he was to say, according to that one narration, that the week of the narration, that is there anyone more knowledgeable than me? He's saying it in a way as a question. Is there anyone more knowledgeable than me that I can seek him and I can learn from him? And if you look at all the prophets, they were in the same style and the same humbleness as Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala led him to Al-Khidr, and he mentioned you will meet him between the junctions of the two seas. So Musa alayhi salam says, I will go and I will seek that knowledge, even if I shall perish in doing so. Even if I have to travel a very long time, I will do so. So even though he's reached an old age and he is the prophet of God and he knows everything, he still sought knowledge. And he said, I will do so as long as it takes, journeying out to seek knowledge, which reminds us of the hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which says, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And Musa alayhi salam exemplified this perfectly throughout his life, and it gives us a lesson as well how we should be always seeking knowledge to the end of our life and never feeling that we know something more than others, because there'll always be some knowledge that we can always take and learn and understand. Now, when Musa set out and he took with him a fish alongside his disciple Al-Yasha' bin Nun. Al-Yasha' bin Nun is also known as Joshua. He would be later on the successor of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Now, when they were traveling, like I mentioned, they took out a fish with them. A fish is a salted fish that's already dead, and they took it with them, which also highlights the importance of eating fish, by the way. You know, the omega-3s are very good for us, so inshallah we don't forget that as well. So he traveled out and he went, and they were looking, and at one point during their travel, they say Musa alayhi salam either slept or he was taking rest. And Yasha' bin Nun, or Joshua, who's also a prophet who becomes the successor after, he was, I don't know, he was either doing his ablution in the water or washing the fish or something. But they say when the water touched the fish became alive, and it jumped into the water. I don't know, fish don't jump, but you know what I mean. It went into the water and it started swimming away. It became alive again. Now, Yasha, Joshua, he looked and he saw that Musa was either sleeping or attentive with other things, so he didn't want to wake him or didn't want to do anything, tell him anything at that point. Later on, Musa woke up and they carried on with their journey, and then Musa said, oh, I feel hunger. So where's the fish? Let's eat. And then Yasha said, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you this amazing incident happened, which is, by the way, a miracle in itself. Amazing incident happened when we were back there in that place. Musa alayhi salam says, that's exactly where we're going to meet Al-Khidr. This is a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when it comes to signs, by the way, animals have a lot of signs with them in the Holy Quran, as well as in narrations. You know, the spider that saved the Prophet, and many other signs that you find within the animal, the link between that, but we don't want to divert. so they went back to that position, which was known as the junction between the two seas. Geographically, it's not known exactly where this is, but there are obviously many narrations that say different things. One of them is that it's between the rivers of Tigris and Euphrates, meaning Al-Furat and Al-Dijla in Iraq, the Mesopotamia area. So that's interesting in itself. They say, Al-Khidr, one of his homes was Al-Kufa in Masjid al-Sahla, alongside Prophet Idris, alongside Prophet Ibrahim. So these are very holy cities, holy places that you can go and see, inshallah, when we have the chance and when travel comes back to us, inshallah. So the junction between the two seas. Now they understood that the junction between the two seas meant this place here, which is, some people narrate that it's a spring of life that Al-Khidr drank from, and he was granted long life. But otherwise, it's just an unknown geographical location or a mystical idea when it says the junction between the two seas, in the sense that this junction between the two seas is where Al-Khidr is the place that brought life to that which was dead, the fish, in the same way that Al-Khidr, the one who brings green, brings life to that which is barren, the same name. Now, the junction between the two seas is also known as, or is also seen metaphorically to represent the sea of knowledge meeting between the two seas of knowledge, which is Musa alayhi salam, which, as I mentioned, is the knowledge of the exterior, or the knowledge of the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. The Sharia being the legislative law in its form, the body form, while Al-Khidr has that inner deep knowledge that is direct from Allah, only revelation, not reason will understand it. So it's that deep knowledge that is found within it. So you have some people say the wilaya tashri'iyya, which is represented in Musa, and the wilaya takwiniyya, which is the creative, legislative power. The legislative power is Musa, and the creative power, or the understanding, deeper inner power, is represented through Al-Khidr alayhim as-salam. So that's interesting in themselves. So they meet together, and sorry, I'm taking a long time. I hope I haven't, everyone's still with me, yeah? Inshallah. It's a long story. I'll try and cut it short. So what happens is they meet together and they travel, and Musa is asking Al-Khidr, please teach me from your knowledge. And Al-Khidr says, you won't be able to be patient because you don't know the secrets of what's going on behind the scenes, But he says, okay, just let me travel with you. Let me learn from you. So he says, okay, come along. They go and they embark on a ship. They embark on a ship. It belongs to some poor people that work using this ship, as in this is their livelihood. So Al-Khidr makes a hole inside the ship itself. Musa alayhi salam obviously objects, and he says, how can you do such a thing? And Al-Khidr says, remember I said you won't be able to be patient. And he said, okay, sorry, I forgot, just sorry, let's carry on. I won't say anything again. And they carried on, and now Al-Khidr does something even more than just a little hole in a ship. He actually kills a young, innocent-looking boy who's done nothing wrong, outwardly. Now, this is something shocking to all standards, shocking to everyone. So obviously, Musa alayhi salam objected, and rightfully so, because this was a heinous crime. This is something really big. Now, Al-Khidr responded the same way. Didn't I tell you won't be able to be patient with me? So Musa said, sorry, okay, let's carry on. If I say anything after this, that's it. Yeah, we can depart then. So they carry on and they go towards the city. They go towards that city, and now they're both very hungry. They are still human beings. So when they walk in the city, they ask for food from their people of the city, and everyone rejects them. They say, no, we're not going to give you any food. They were horrible people, no hospitality at all. And obviously that fish that Musa wanted to really eat had become alive, and it's gone far away from now. So they didn't have anything for a while. So they go inside the city, and then they find a wall that is falling down. It's going to collapse soon. So Al-Khidr comes and he restores that wall to its rightful position. Musa alayhi salam looks at him, and after all that hard work and sweat, he looks at him and he says, we could have got some recompense, from this work that we did. We could have at least asked someone for some food, some money. So Al-Khidr said, that's it. That's the divide between me and you now. We will depart from one another. You objected once again. So Al-Khidr says, I will explain the things that happened, and I'll explain their secrets behind what was going on. The first one, I put a hole in the ship because behind that ship was a tyrant king that used to take all the ships that he sees that are in good condition. So I put a hole in the ship, which made it, the hole was big enough that it would damage the ship, enough for the king to refuse it, but not enough for those workers to be able to fix it and now use that ship for their own use. So subhanAllah, there was good behind, there was wisdom behind it. Now what's interesting as well as this incident is very similar to an incident that happened during the life of Musa alayhi salam himself. When the mother of Musa gave birth to Musa, she had a choice as well. Because what happened was there was a tyrant king, Pharaoh, who used to come and he used to take all the newborn children and kill them. So therefore the mother of Musa alayhi salam, she said, I would either keep the child and risk being taken from Pharaoh and being killed, or I would leave him in the stream, put him in the basket and leave him in the stream by himself. So subhanAllah, she was put in a decision between two evils. She didn't have a third choice. In the same way that Al-Khidr now has a decision between two evils or two bads, one putting a hole in a ship or one leaving it for the tyrant to take the ship. And he did the one that was the lesser of the two. So it's an interesting point, both in summary of the life, in comparison the life of Musa and in the actual incident itself. Second incident, killing of the boy. Now this is one of the most controversial in itself. Now he says that this boy will be later a rebellious and unbeliever, and he will give a very hard time for his parents, who are righteous and good believers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to replace them with something that will give them more mercy, which is purer and more mercy towards them. And it said in the narrations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them instead a girl, a baby girl, who from her lineage came 70 prophets. So subhanAllah, Allah replaced it with that. So in reality, what we see is for the parents, they see their son being killed or they see their son dying. But in reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you do not know the future and I know the future. I know the wisdom and I know the reason behind things. Just keep your trust in me and know that I will give you that which is better, both in this life and the afterlife, for being patient for the test of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Al-Khidr here acted as an agent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same way that the angel of death takes the life of a child. Because some people say, how can he go and do such a thing? He's an agent of Allah in the same way that when we die, the angel of death is an agent of Allah that takes our soul. So he was an agent of Allah that showed us this in the exterior as well, and showed us the sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in itself. And this was a direct knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's not the idea of the greater good, not the greater good, the idea of looking at the ends justify the means and things like this. It's not that concept exactly, and inshallah I'll leave that for the discussion itself. Now the third thing, which was the final thing, was that he restored the wall. And by the way, going back to that other story about killing of that person is the same thing that happened to Prophet Musa alayhi salam during his life, where there were two people fighting with one another, and he went saving the other one. He pushed the one who was on the side of Pharaoh, that Coptic who was on the side of Pharaoh, and that person fell and hit himself on a rock, they say according to the narrations, and he died. In the same way that this person, this kid, also died at the hands of Al-Khidr, while the other one died at the hands of Musa alayhi salam, although not on purpose, but in the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought through the hands of Musa this mercy by relieving them from this tyrant who was a person who used to go and kill and offend and do injustice to the people, the workers at the time who were the people of Musa alayhi salam. So another parallel incident in the life of Musa. Now we go to the third incident, which is restoring the wall. He says, look, behind this wall is some treasure, and it belongs to some orphans. Their dad has passed away and he left some treasure behind this wall. Now, because these orphans are still young, if the wall collapsed, the treasure would be taken by the people of this land that you saw that were not very hospitable in their approach. So I wanted to restore it back because until they reach old age, so then when it collapses again, they'll be able to take the treasure for themselves. And this is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the father being a righteous and good person, he rewarded him by giving this mercy to the children of the father. And subhanallah, it shows the link about how how your action affects your children or your progeny directly in that way. Subhanallah. So if you do good, you leave a good seed, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be one that will look after it and make it blossom. So don't forget that point. And once again, the relation between this story and that of Prophet Musa alayhi salam is when he went and he helped those two daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salam in the way to Midian, in the well, when he brought the water for them, when he didn't ask for any reward in return. In the same way, Al-Khidr now does this action without asking any reward. So subhanallah, it shows you the outer, which is Musa, and the inner, which is the Al-Khidr alayhi salam. And I end on that note. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jazakallah. Thank you very much, Sayyid Ali. That was a very concise but thorough introduction to this topic. Alhamdulillah, you covered lots of key points. So much to go through. I noticed actually during your discussion there's a couple of individuals who unmuted, maybe to interject or maybe ask a question and so forth. So we are, obviously this is the same format that we try and keep and make as interactive as possible. So does anyone have any key or any questions or any comments even, just to mention? It doesn't have to be a question as such, and then we can get started, inshallah. Or I'll have to start again. Okay, I'll start. So, okay, one of the parallels or analogous situations that people often reference is, okay, so this is trying to morally justify for example, we're talking about the death of the boy, for example, is the most controversial point. This is seen as a moral justification for killing. Some people honor killing and all these sorts of things when people are bringing disrepute into a family or disrepute into a community or disrepute into a society and so forth. What can counter or what can be used as a way to influence the discussion in a positive manner?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, yeah, thank you for that, Ahmed. The idea here is that, number one, Al-Khidr alayhi salam had a direct knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was the direct agent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this matter. You find that Musa alayhi salam objected to his action. Why did he object? Because from a tashri'i point of view, from a legislative law perspective that we are all following, it is wrong. It is wrong to go kill someone preemptively because you think that they may do a wrong action in the future, or there may be bad that came from them. That is wrong in itself, and that's why Musa alayhi salam objected to this. Now, Al-Khidr was, like I said, direct agent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this was a direct command of Allah, because Allah is the only one that knows the knowledge of the unseen completely, without any doubt, because he has seen everything already and seen what is happening. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to take a life, It's in the same way that he brought the life. It is up to him, it is his choice, it is a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he sees that we are heading towards the wrong direction through our free will, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may interfere then. And when he does, it is out of a mercy, because he reduced the life of that teenage kid, for example, and by doing so, that was a mercy to the kid himself, because it stopped him from being that tyrant that caused so many destruction and so many bad in his life, as well as a mercy for the parents that would have found much grief in this in the life of their child. So this is a mercy, and it's only known through the inner knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, if we think that by killing someone else for a greater good and something like this is better because maybe they might do this or maybe they might do that, that is incorrect in itself. I mean, there's a famous tradition that says la yuta'u Allah min haythu yu'sa. Allah cannot be obeyed by his disobedience, in the sense that, for example, now let's give a scenario. If there was 100 people, no, let's make it more. If there was 1,000 people and there was one innocent person, and it was said to you, you have to kill that one innocent child to save 1,000 or 1,000,000 people from being killed, would it be correct to do so? What do the people on this group think? If saving 1,000,000 people, if saving 1,000,000 people by killing or doing one bad action, by killing or killing one child or one person, and by doing so I have stopped the killing of 1,000,000 people, is it right to do so? That's the question. Anyone on the chats? Let's check the chats.
No, I would say it's not, because
Really, you're gonna save 1,000,000 people?
Yeah, I think you don't actually know what is the bigger picture, I think is the question. You know, saving these 1,000,000 people, is that a good thing? How do you know? I think that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't think there's enough information to judge, and as you say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sort of absolute, has got the absolute knowledge. So
Ahsant, very nice. Anyone would like to object to this? Because remember, you're just doing something one bad small to do a very big good. You know, saving 1,000,000 people, and who they saved one life, like they saved the whole of humanity. Come on, anyone on the other side or no? What's the outcome of the poll that you just did?
Yeah, we've got actually 3
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikhna.
Oh, Sheikh is on here, yes. Sorry for speaking in your presence, you know more.
Do I have a voice there?
Yes, please.
Salam. Yes.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
My voice is good because we are in a car, and I was actually enjoying. And from the beginning, then I had a disconnection at the middle. But then here I got the question. So the question is about the lesser evil issue, the moral dilemma between a lesser evil and a greater evil. What choice is the best choice? Is it that some people are against this, that you should choose the lesser evil?
That's yes. It's more of the idea of the doing an action for the greater good. In other words, if I did one bad for the greater good, so the end justifying the means. Because the one with the lesser evil is that they didn't have any choice. So the right thing would be to do the less evil is good, in the same way that, for example, if someone is dying and you have your Asr prayer to pray and you only have 5 minutes, it's either you pray your salah or you save the drowning person. That's one of the two lesser evils. So you have to save the drowning person instead of praying your salah, and then you do your salah qada later on. That's the lesser evil. That one is, I think, understood by most. But when it comes to the second point, this one is the idea of the greater good. So you're doing a bad action for a greater outcome. So is this okay? So a utilitarian, if you like, from philosophy, utilitarian kind of concept instead of the deontological Kant argument.
I get it. Yeah, there are two ways to put the dilemma. So one of them we call it the lesser evil, the other one we call it the greater good. And the greater good, again, I think there's a difference between greater good argument and the end justifying means. But generally, if we put it in a, I think some levels of it, there is no question that it's a choice everybody makes. Like, for example, you have seen people who are having diabetes in some forms, stages of diabetes, they accept themselves for their limbs to be cut off. Like, for example, their feet, they start from the feet, or any other kind of infection in the limbs. Doctors say, if you want to save your life, you're gonna forget about your hand, the infected part, right? So, or even some treatments in medicine, chemo, like in people who are having cancer, so they accept lesser evil in order to have longer life. Isn't it correct? I mean, it's a choice that everybody makes. I haven't seen anyone saying that this is end justifying means. Oh, is it, am I correct or not?
Yes, correct. أحسنتم شيخنا. Yes, that's correct.
So these at this level is good. I think sometimes these moral arguments initially and originally their values so much in politics. We have the argument that we almost feel like to puke when we hear about greater good argument. You see, it's kind of rejection that we have developed out of the so much abuse of the case. If we take that argument initially, it's a good argument. Forget about the misuse of the argument. There are many good things that have.
Sheikhna, we're losing a lot of your sound when you're talking because of your journey.
To be the cases of tool so the name of, oh really, so I think if my sound is not very good, then I just keep listening, but I'm glad that I made that point at least. Is it clear?
أحسنتم شيخنا. I think
Let
your
me check
points
the
are,
chat. So you tell
clear.
me in the chat when. Okay.
So
Yeah,
yes,
that was my point about the abuse and misuse of the good are valid, originally and initially valid moral arguments. We should make a difference because, as I said, in politics, these people misuse these arguments, but we shouldn't mix between what happens there and what is originally and theoretically in moral discussions. How
أحسنتم.
we can stop the misuse and abuse is another discussion.
Yes. So let me just go back as well to the actual question that I put forth. Do you have a result in the poll?
So I'm going to leave the mic because
I should explain actually. We weren't expecting Sheikh Latifi to be with us today because he's actually traveling from Zimbabwe to Iran, inshallah. So, but mashallah, out of his sheer will and desire, he has managed to participate in some way. So we're very grateful to you, Sheikh, and always having some great insight as usual. The poll was divided. We had half saying yes, half saying no.
Okay, Ahsantum. So that's interesting. Number one, we mentioned there are two concepts here. Number one is the lesser evil. The lesser evil is when you don't have a choice. Like you have to cut off your limb, like the Sheikh mentioned, which is a beautiful example. You have to cut off a limb to save the rest of your life. Or you have to save that person but you lose your salah timing. That's okay. No one's going to object to that. That's the lesser of the two. And that was both in the first instance where he put a hole in the ship. That was a small evil to save a bigger thing. That was the lesser of the two evils. In the same way that Musa's mother did the same thing to save her child. So she put her child in a stream and left him alone. I mean, that's evil in itself, but it's less of the two evils. So in the reality, it's a good thing that they did because they didn't have any other choice. And this we see in our life. So the less of the two. The other one is the idea of doing, for the greater outcome, you're doing a wrong action. Now, I've mentioned the narration. لا يطاع الله من حيث يعصى. You cannot obey the command of Allah by disobeying the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To kill a small innocent child, or to kill one person who's innocent, who there's no need to kill them, to save 1 million people is incorrect, is not right in all ways of thought. Because you cannot do a wrong action for the sake of a good outcome. Because in reality, just like I think it was Ibrahim who mentioned at the beginning when he said that, you know, we need to look at the bigger picture. Yes, we do need to look at the bigger picture. Those 1 million people are going to die anyway. We're all going to die. Okay, so don't forget that. It's the idea that if they're going to die, they're going to die. That's not in my hands. But to do a wrong action to save them, and then they might die straight after anyway, it's not right. You cannot do a wrong action for the sake of a greater good that you think might come from it. In the sense that you cannot do, like, let's say if we were asked and said, you know, if you drink this much alcohol, just a bit of alcohol, you'll get 100 people, 1 million people that will all convert to Islam. Would that be correct? Of course not. Whether they convert to Islam or not convert to Islam, or convert to Islam is very good. They all come towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I have to do something bad. I have to disobey Allah to get them to be on the good, or to get others to do well, or to be to have a good outcome. That's not right in all ways or forms. So never think that by doing a bad action for a greater outcome is good in itself. We don't look at that. We don't do that. But the less of the two evils is another concept in itself. So inshallah, I hope that's clarified it a little bit.
Thank you, Said. Actually, again, probably last point on this issue, because there's, like you mentioned, there was so much more to the story of Nabi Khidr and Musa than this. Someone's written, again, it's similar to maybe the question that was asked at the beginning, but if it was from Hassan in the chat, you might read this. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew this boy was to become bad and took his life, why didn't he do so with other terrible people? For example, Hitler nearly drowned as a small child, but was saved by a priest and ended up becoming a mass murderer. Allah could have let him die young. Furthermore, why didn't he give permission to any of the other prophets to do so? The Prophet said that his legacy would be destroyed by the youngsters of the Quraysh. So why didn't Allah give him permission to destroy them at their roots and stop lots of bad and destruction in the future? This is in itself, I know this question can lead on to another discussion in terms of the philosophical discussion, actually. And we have actually keen philosophers here. And Sheikh Mohammed Fakdeen, you unmuted there for a second.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum
assalam wa rahmatullah.
Salam. Sorry, I think my internet was off for a couple of minutes. And I really enjoyed the discussion, especially the moment it reached the philosophical aspect of the topic.
I thought it would, yeah.
Yeah. So now, sorry, Brother Ahmad, I didn't hear your comment, the last one. So did you ask anything from me, or because I just hear you say Salam alaikum?
No, yes, I mean, essentially, I was bringing up in the chat, you might be able to read it. It's a question that can lead into a philosophical discussion into why was this incident with the boy not performed in a wider level with other Anbiya or with other people? Why is it being what's the significance of being mentioned in this story and in this context and so forth?
I think, who knows that? You know, this is the first question. Actually, I think that is only one example mentioned by Holy Quran about that. So we can know there are other things that are being performed by awliyaullah in the world to maintain the justice and wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the world, and we are not aware of them. And you don't know, for instance, how Imam Mahdi Ajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif manages this world, and is he interfering in the world in the way that, for instance, Prophet Khidr did or not. These are just questions, but I think the story of Prophet Khidr in the Quran is just one of the examples of how awliyaullah are helping the world to continue its way. That was my opinion on this. And there are lots of points about the reason that I think the reason Quran highlights this story, because there was another Nabi who wasn't aware of the reason behind it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him that if you are, for instance, if you do not have the knowledge, you should be patient till you receive the knowledge and you know about the reasons behind that. So if one of us, any of us, come to that situation to know about an action performed by, for instance, Imam Mahdi Ajjallah Ta'ala Farajah Sharif, we shouldn't be that rush into questioning the philosophy behind performing such actions. And Avicenna, he says, if you do not know the answer to a question, or if you cannot understand the reason behind an action performed by a wali, don't question it in your heart. Just wait, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open your heart and will give you the knowledge of that, inshallah. So this is mentioned in Maqamat al-Arifin by Ibn Sina. And I think this is a very good lesson for us to learn, because sometimes people, as soon as they receive any news about something extraordinary, they say, no, it's impossible. By which criterion you are saying that this is impossible? For instance, are you using experimental method to say something extraordinary that has some, for instance, immaterial causes that you cannot discover them by your experiments? You want to say that it is impossible? Actually, we say you don't have the tools to examine and to find an answer to that question unless you use your intellect. And when you use intellect, you need to bring rational arguments to say this action, for instance, is impossible. Otherwise, we won't listen to you, because you are using a method that is not appropriate for this study. I think I covered your question. That was my idea.
Thank you, Sheikh. No, indeed. Thank you very much. It's a key point to mention at this point, and we can get it elaborated even more, inshallah, but I think that suffices for this point. Sayyid Ali, do you have something to add there? Or was this...
So Ahsantum, yes, that was a good concept. The idea that we can't really measure the rightness or correctness of this anyway, so we leave it in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But going further than this, is the idea is the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number one, the knowledge of Allah is not causative. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although He knows things, He doesn't cause things to be. We have the idea of the free will. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves us to our choices. يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. Allah gives us a choice. Things have been written in the sense that we have been, this is our actions, this is how we will be, but we always have the choice of doing otherwise. So in that sense, in some people, they had the choice and they were able to do good. So Allah gave them the ability, or gave them that choice in itself. Some then chose to do bad. But there are some individuals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the percentage of them being bad or being not having that choice in their life is greater. So for example, that kid that was to become a tyrant, he may be someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew like 99%, 100%, he was going to be on that road towards bad, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him by taking his life early. Other people, they might be in a road where they are 70, 40, 30, you know, things like this. So the percentage might be less or more according to their free will and according to the opportunities they would have in their life to change, to become better, to change that path from being a tyrant to being a good person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might then leave them to have that choice and to make that decision for themselves, whereas they choose to be the bad and choose the bad direction. So it's open, is a very difficult question to answer, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's justice is greater than we know. And these things will happen. There will be a tyrant and he will be left, and there will be a good person or a person that's not a tyrant yet, and he will be taken early. So this is in the eyes of Allah and the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it depends on percentages and depends on your idea that we still have free will, we can still change, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may leave us to do so, or he may not take it early, depending on certain factors. So I hope that kind of answers.
No, thank you very much, Saeed. Sonia, Dr. Sonia, you were unmuted as well. Did you have a point or a question?
I was just very small. Jazakallah, everybody, Saeed Ali and Sheikh, both Sheikhs. I was just going to say, very small point, that maybe there's a lesson that, you know, as human beings, we often judge or make decisions when we look at something or a person without actually knowing the whole picture behind it all. And I think can sometimes be quite a negative thing for us humans. We can snap to judgments, and I think we all do it. And I think just for me, it was just my thought that this is saying that, you know, there's always, you know, other things going on that we don't know about, and we should always sort of keep that in our minds before we rush to judgments and decisions and so on. So that was all. Thank you.
That's a very key point actually in the whole story. So thank you for reminding us of the essence of the story itself. Thanks.
Saeed, you have some other point?
Just to answer the question in totality, the question of Hassan is very long. The Prophet said that his legacy would be destroyed by the youngsters of Quraysh, so why didn't Allah give him permission to destroy them at their roots? I think you need to look at the Battle of Tabuk. It wasn't a battle in the end, but it was a very great incident that happened actually at the end of the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just before he passed away. I guess it's too long to describe the whole incident, but in the end of the day, there were some companions that wanted to kill the Prophet, and he knew who they were, and the Prophet mentioned that I will not. They said, why do you not kill them? You know, why do you not destroy these munafiqeen, hypocrites, who are saying that they're Muslims, saying that they're good, but they're doing bad actions. They wanted to kill you actually. They had a plot against the Prophet in the Battle of Tabuk on the way back. So the Prophet said, I do not want to be known as the one that kills his companions. So his image had to be retained by him not doing so, while they still had the choice of doing good and doing bad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's religion will still be preserved through the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And he mentioned very clearly to all people, if you look at Sahih Muslim, I'm leaving the Quran and my Ahlul Bayt, my Ahlul Bayt, my Ahlul Bayt. He mentioned it 3 times, emphasizing that concept, that if you want guidance, it's through this path, and the guidance and that true path is still there. So that's the reason for that one. So I hope that answers that question as well.
No, thank you indeed, Saeed Ali. I'm conscious of the time. We unfortunately have to conclude now. If there's any final points or questions, please speak right now. Otherwise, we're going to essentially say, I mean, we did, the discussion did focus a lot on this moral dilemma, or this moral question, shall we say, about killing preemptively and so forth. However, the concept of the mirroring of the story of Nabi Musa and Khidr was very interesting, and something that it deserves even more elucidation, alhamdulillah. if you could just maybe just highlight again key elements and points that we can use to implement in a practical level in our daily lives, inshallah, and using Khidr as an inspiration, and obviously Nabi Musa, of course, as an inspiration in equal measure.
Ahsantum. So yes, let us not forget that everything that comes is from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything that is taken is from the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as our Sheikh has mentioned. The story highlights these concepts in its totality, in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and has wisdom, and there is wisdom behind anything that happens in our life. Let us be patient, let us be understanding, let us have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and understand that everything is for a reason and everything is good in the end, because Allah is good and He brings nothing but good, and this life is a test and we will be tested. Let's not be quick or rash to judge. Instead, let's be patient and say, you know, I don't know the reasons behind things, but I know Allah is the most merciful, the most kind. We are from Him, and to Him, inshallah, we will return. And being firm in our faith in this, inshallah. So these are the key points, key aspects that, inshallah, we take away from the story.
Jazakumullah alaf khair. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Sayyid Ali. Thank you to all the audience. Thank you, Sheikh Muhammad Bakhdeen, Sheikh Latifi. It's an honor to have so many brilliant minds, alhamdulillah, in this discussion. We're going to finish it with a dua Jummah. Brother Ibrahim, inshallah, is on standby and to recite, inshallah. I will share the screen with the dua at this point.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء، والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء، العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكره ولا ينقص من شكره ولا يخيب من دعاه ولا يقطع رجاء من رجاه. اللهم إني أشهدك وكفى بك شهيدا، وأشهد جميع ملائكتك وسكان سماواتك وحملة عرشك ومن بعثت من أنبيائك ورسلك وأنشأت من أصناف خلقك، أني أشهد أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك ولا عديل ولا خلف لقولك ولا تبديل، وأن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله عبدك ورسولك أدى ما حملته إلى العباد وجاهد في الله عز وجل حق الجهاد، وأنه بشر بما هو حق من الثواب وأنذر بما هو صدق من العقاب. اللهم ثبتني على دينك ما أحييتني ولا تزغ قلبي بعد إذ هديتني، وهب لي من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. صل على محمد وآل محمد واجعلني من أتباعه وشيعته، واحشرني في زمرته، ووفقني لأداء فرض الجمعات وما أوجبت علي فيها من الطاعات وقسمت لأهلها من العطاء في يوم الجزاء، إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. May Allah bless everyone and their families, keep everyone safe, alhamdulillah. Thank you very much to everyone for your participation, alhamdulillah. I also want to note, Sister Luna, your comment about how this reminded you of the discussions that we had, I think 10 years ago, alhamdulillah. It was nice to hear that comment, alhamdulillah. But again, inshallah, we'll continue the series next week and with another discussion, inshallah. and God willing, you're all present. Feel free to unmute and send your thoughts and salams. For now, ma salama. Take care, everyone.